أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Ladies and gentlemen, as I promised today, and my honorable guest, Bell with me, Bidwell with me now, and I really thankful to Claire Bidwell. Today you joining me on channel Live Ratta 111 Birmingham, UK. Thank you very much, Claire. Claire, let's a little bit do introduction yourself. Can you introduce yourself to my viewers, please?
Yes, I can. My name's Claire Bidwell. I live in Scotland. I'm a primary school teacher. And the sound keeps coming back on me, so it's really difficult. I'll try and ignore it.
Okay, I mute my mic, then probably you won't have a double voice. So let's talk first about the coronavirus. At the moment, current situation globally, coronavirus situation is bad. People are facing a large number of difficulties in their life. Do you think what we people can do more to stop spreading this disease?
Oh, my goodness, it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, we've been living under this now for a year, and mentally, my way of coping with it is to almost pretend it's not there, because it's so oppressive. I'm currently living on a Scottish island, and I'm not allowed to leave the island because the town beyond it is a tier 4. So we can't travel anywhere, we're within our homes, and even international flights are illegal. We're not allowed to go anywhere. So it's very much trapped. But then ironically, I mean, I didn't say in the introduction, but I'm a co-founder of a group called Let Kashmir Decide, which I embarked as a human rights activist on the journey after Modi locked down the government. So it's giving everybody on the outside a real feeling of what it's like to actually be, under siege and not able to move, nowhere near in comparison. I know the coronavirus, I'm really, I don't know. We all have our different views on it. I'm not an expert. For myself, I have no fear, and I would like life to just be normal. But obviously, I can't. Then, I don't want to give it to my parents or my family or vulnerable people. So I'm just following all the guidelines that I'm told to. Face mask on, washing my hands as often as I can, keeping distance, following the guidelines of not seeing who I meet. I mean, in the UK here, we're kind of blessed that we can do that. Again, I'm in a really nice environment. We've not got many, there's no underground tubes. There's no big false shopping malls. We're very, good environment. But it must be different everywhere globally. I can understand that. And so if we're looking at, within Kashmir, for example, that the lack of resources and everything that they need for that will just be horrendous, I should imagine. It's a difficult topic to explore, actually. That aren't coping with it, so it's massive. It's a whole. I don't know what we do. I just keep doing what we're doing. I don't know.
Yeah, yes. Let's let me say something. In poor countries of the world, international community, did they help to the poor countries such as Somalia, Africa, Pakistan, India? Because the people they're facing hardships. Financially they're facing very big
I don't think our connection's great. I'm not hearing you. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes. I can hear you now, yes.
Yeah, I was asking, what do you think about the other countries, poor countries such as Africa, or if you go to Asia, South Asia, West Asia, international community now playing their a major role to help these countries financially. What do you think? What we need more to do help those countries to stop this pandemic?
Again, I mean, it's the same with everything. I think the coronavirus has shown us how small the world is, and I'm very outward facing. I think we should all be working together. We should be helping one another. So any opportunities, beyond that, we should be doing all we can. It's not, there's nothing different between each country. And interestingly, though, isn't it? I mean, I'm not that aware of how much other countries are suffering, but if we look at the rates, the United Kingdom has one of the worst records and one of the worst rates. So that begs lots of different questions. But I just generally feel everybody should be helping everybody wherever they are, wherever they can, however they can. That's it, really. I mean, whether that's information, whether that's aid, whether that's money, whatever it is.
Yeah, Claire, let me ask you. That Boris Johnson and government, they decide to reopen the school. So many people have concern that maybe if they reopen the school, so maybe this virus spread again. What do you think? Should we wait more time? Should we give more time, or Boris Johnson decision is right?
Again, they're just such tricky questions, because I think there's an element of don't know about it, and everybody has a personal opinion on it. As a teacher, under the guidelines, I'm happy to go back into school right now. We've got, as much as we can in place. We're doing all we can, following all the guidelines. Equally, if a parent didn't want to send their child in, felt they wanted to keep themselves safe, I think that should be their right. I'm finding it very difficult, even personally, to live under such strict, tight regulations. And so there has to be, I feel a lot of me is like, let me go, let me out, I'll just face what it brings. So I don't have, we have to come out of this somehow, but I'm not an expert, and I'm just trying to go with the flow, follow the regulations. But I'm, personally, I'm feeling just let me go, lift everything, let's just deal with it. But I guess it's, they're under the NHS, they're not wanting to overface that. I just find it very challenging, and I'm not an expert.
Okay, let's talk about the Kashmir. How you feel as a human. We feel like we face like a lockdown, like a few months, you can say a year. But what do you think people of Kashmir, who they are facing nearly 2 years more than us? Why world community is silent over this brutality? I believe this is a brutality and cruelty with the people of Kashmir.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what brought me into this. It's sad, it's beyond belief, and I don't actually really understand why more people aren't concerned, why more people aren't caring. And I mean, that's what's brought me into this, that sense of injustice when Modi first went in and locked down Kashmir. It was somebody that couldn't contact their parents that I became aware of it. And it just felt so unfair, so unjust. Something inside me wanted to take all the people in the world to Indian-occupied Kashmir and get the troops out. Such was the level of... So, my thing then became about wanting to raise awareness in the UK and internationally about this situation, because I felt at that point that not enough people knew that part of the reason this was as bad as it was is because it was hidden, in our media, hidden from keeping people indoctrinated in their societies, filling the news with things like coronavirus, filling the news with things like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I mean, it's all part of, I feel, the brainwashing of us, keep us in our day-to-day lifestyle. So I think what's happening in Kashmir is horrendous. And like you've made the comparison there, if we're suffering under fair and just conditions with the coronavirus, how must that be there, let alone being under siege? And so as a human, for me, I feel awful about it. I feel the pain in it, and that drives me to, what can I do to make a difference? You know, I'm just an ordinary human being like anybody else in this world. I'm, you know, just trying to help however I can. And
Yeah,
I think I
Claire,
felt
let me
my
ask
role
you.
was internationally to bring it out.
Yeah, Claire, let me ask you something. As you know when subcontinent being divided by English rulers by Lord Mountbatten, everybody knows. So, what is the responsibility of the government of UK? Why they not playing a role to get the right of self determination to the people of Kashmir?
Oh, well, I mean, essentially it comes down to economy, doesn't it? And the money. And again, it's all tied up in all kind of international laws and different things. And I think India allowed some kind of protection against them all. But we know fine that it was the UK government that, you know, partitioned Kashmir the way it did, left it in the hands of other countries with their promise for self-determination. So here we are 73 years in this unjust situation. It's very much a UK government's position to take a charge on this, I think. And sometimes I think it's about, you know, sometimes I think our politicians almost, this might sound naive, but some of our politicians are also human beings. And unless that information is shared to them, given to them, they look really into it, you know, that's a lot that's over them. But that said, they do know, they have been told now, they are aware, and they're turning blind eyes to it. Not all of them. There's lots of members of parliament that are standing up for Kashmir, making their voices heard. You know, we recently had that incredible debate. So we just need to keep chipping away about the importance of humanity, I think, and put it over economy. I also feel that if we were more humane as a society, stop selling our weapons of war, stop doing, you know, the trade, I think that we could see our economy become stronger through ethical ways anyway, because, for example, they stopped selling all the weapons to Pakistan and to India. How much eventually would they as countries become richer in themselves if they didn't have to sell all that military military presence and put it into their own countries, and then essentially would become stronger financially, and it would impact on economy. So I think we're kind of stuck in some sort of status quo, and I very much believe that the UK government have a big role to play, one in talking to America because of their role in it, and secondly in the United Nations. They need to get it functional and not just you know, a talk shop and picking and choosing what battles they fight. I think they were recently issuing statements about Myanmar. And for me, you can't speak out about human rights about just one area and be selective. You have to be aware of all. So there's chinks of light, but we have to keep working and raising awareness and bringing it out. And I think, of course, that, you know, the media is another area that needs challenged, that needs tackled, because if we can let more people in Western society know, they can lobby their parliaments and their voice can become stronger. But the UK government owe a big, you know, moral duty, and they need to fix the mess they made, basically.
Yeah, Claire. As you know, we have a majority, second, I think third majority in England as Kashmiri nation at the moment. You know, census to 2000 coming is starting now. So we are trying to convey the message to the people that we fill the form as a Kashmiri nation and we should be recognized as a nation because we are a nation. And I'm really thankful to you that you struggle for us, you fight for the people of Kashmir. I'm really grateful to you from the people of Kashmir. I want to ask you, how can we can give information to our children about the people of Kashmir who are facing various difficulties of the world?
I mean, well, within everything that's happening already, isn't it? Starting within the family is the first place, of course. Keep those stories going, keep them alive. I mean, there's lots of YouTube channels and things as well that share stories, share the culture. So it's kind of going through that way. But as a grassroots effort, I mean, Corona is stopping us from doing things right now because other opportunities are to have Kashmiri events within the community. You know, open the doors for people to come along. And there was someone in Crawley recently, Parveen, who had an amazing Kashmiri exhibition and opened the eyes to many of the community. So extending it further, so not just her children and her family, but then out to the community. Within schools, people can go into schools and share their stories and build it up. Schools very much more are now becoming, you know, the classroom is beyond the classroom. There are no classroom walls. You bring learning into everything. It's about how we need to be as a learner and those skills. So there's ample opportunity for Kashmiris to bring it beyond their own front door, into schools, into communities, and out further. And then if we're having events, that can then be shared within the local media, and you've got the potential there to start rolling through for, you know, to national media. One of the positive things that's hugely positive about this identity campaign is how the Kashmiris have pulled together, had to unite, build those connections, build that network to get their message out to other Kashmiris who were just somewhere hidden in the society, getting on with their lives, unaware of the difference or the impact they could have. So it's a real strength, and the work that's been done is, you know, shows the passion, the hard work and determination of the Kashmiris, which we know has been there for 73 years, or we wouldn't still be fighting this battle if they didn't have that resolve and self-determination. So that, for me, it's build it outwards like a grassroots movement. It comes from the home to the community and outward, and then, you know, connecting with people from all members of society. And again,
Let me ask you another question. UN resolution, you know, for the people of Kashmir, which is, you know, UN Security Council and United Nations, why they failed to act upon their own resolution which they passed, but all the national people of Kashmir, they're looking towards United Nations and UN Security Council, but they're not doing anything for the people of Kashmir. Why? Because they got the resolution. They put the resolution to give the people of Kashmir right of self-determination. But why they failed?
I think there's two parts to that answer, and one is based on the setup of the United Nations and what the United Nations is actually about. And it's, you know, it has amazing articles and charters, amazing resolutions. It's set up on, you know, excellent humanity foundations, but it's just not being implemented in the way we would hope. And so it's, you know, grown from the richest nations, you know, in the West, and it's playing into their hands, and they pick and choose, from what I can tell, to what they're going to tackle and what they're going to challenge. And they talk the talk, but they never seem to get the action out there. And that's up to, like I say, the richer countries. The other part to it, I feel, is the Kashmiris' voice. You know, they don't have their own clear voice or right at the United Nations. They're reliant very much on, you know, others coming in and speaking. And we saw that last year with Imran Khan and Pakistan coming forward and speaking for the Kashmiris, and his speech that he did for 40 minutes, you know, even, you know, whether people are supportive of Pakistan or not, what they have to realize in that situation was that kept it alive on the international stage. Myself at that point, I was looking around in a sense of despair at the world, because there was nowhere that this news was being, you know, relayed. I'd seen, is it Natisha Call? She did that amazing speech at United Nations as well, which thankfully was shared on social media, that gave courage. And then when Imran Khan stood up, and one of the things that he said was like, for the UK, if this was a country of over 8 million animals or pets locked down, people in the UK would be up in arms. And for me, it's like, why aren't the people of the UK up in arms about this situation that's going on in Kashmir in the way they were? So Pakistan are doing their best on an international stage to keep this issue alive, because if they weren't, it would be it wouldn't be as out there, as noticeable as it is, and that needs to be, you know, built on. We can't lose the international voices, but equally Kashmir need to be given their own voice, or somebody needs to represent them as their own body and what they want. And for me, self-determination, every Kashmiri from every political spectrum, from every ideology, comes together simply as Kashmiri, simply for humanity and all those that support them. So for self-determination, that will, you know, that will remove all the human rights atrocities and abuses. And if the United Nations would bring in a peacekeeping army, you know, the Indian troops out, Pakistan troops out, and oversee a plebiscite and let the people of Kashmir have their say, whoever they choose, it's democracy, it's their choice, it's their right, it's their say. And we should eventually, you know, we would see peace in there, and we would see an end to all these human rights abuses. And sometimes for me, that solution just seems so simple that it's incredible that it's become this complicated and this complex. Yeah, so that's, you know, the United Nations acted on what it said, we'd see a different world.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, Claire. We both we speak for the people, you yourself and myself as well. I always speak for the people, for the rights of the people. Talk about India. India claims that India is a biggest democratic country in the world. But if you see in India, inside, the minorities in India, such as Sikhs and the low caste Hindus, Muslims, and Christians, they've been discriminated. What do you think? Why the government of England now playing their role to stop India to discriminate the minorities in India?
Yeah, good question at a good point as well, because we're facing a dictatorship country, aren't we? And we're facing a country at the moment that, in my personal opinion, the BJP government, RSS, are ruining India. And again, I believe it comes down to the economy. It's the money. That's what it's all about. We've got other issues going on. I mean, what's happening in India just now is horrendous. And it's quite scary to speak anything. And I always want to try and make it clear, I'm not anti-Indian. You know, I'm not anti-anybody, but I'm anti-policies, anti-behavior. We've seen some horrendous, and the images are stuck in my head from the Delhi riots, you know, the lynchings, the mob lynchings, baying crowds around one single person, kicking him, stamping him to death. You know, the rapes, the people that were locked in houses, that the atrocities just go beyond. We're watching the farmers' protests at the moment, the way they're treating them. And I think what we know is that, you know, if they can behave like that in India and we can see it openly, what on earth is going on in Kashmir? And the brain almost stops thinking about it because it's so traumatic and it's so awful. In many simple ways, you know, Modi, they're following the Nazism line. So we've got extreme Hindutva. I mean, this is not about just Hindus, ordinary, everyday loving Hindus. This is extremism. And as you say, and it but gets into the caste system and a belief about who is better than others and better than someone else. I don't know. I can't make up my mind what's wrong with the world leaders, because to me, it's obvious, it's blatant that what India are doing and the way India are behaving is frightening. And it's scary, and it's a threat to world peace, a genuine threat. We saw this Disinfo Lab research that where India have been spreading stories, mainly anti-Pakistan, but generally any stories they've been getting in at the media, in at academics, in at our lobbyists. They've been doing that for 15 years. So this divide and rule that's come amongst Kashmiri supporters, diaspora, anybody, has sent a lot of confusing narratives out there. And again, if we look at the way the Indian government are, you know, what is happening and what's happening in that country, they seem to be, and I hope in a way they're their own downfall, because they're doing more damage to themselves than I think anybody else who's trying to work against them is. So I hope the truth out. I think, you know, the world leaders,
let's talk about the Sikh farmer. Let's talk about the Sikh farmer. You know, they work very hard for the country. If they're Indian, but because I always speak for the human rights, so my channel is always for the human rights people. Where the discrimination, I against them. So why India made such law for their own people. Forget the Kashmir, their own people. They've been discriminated like such as Sikh, as I told you before. They work hard for the country, but this is not fair with the Sikh people. So at the moment, Indian army, Indian police being cruel to the Sikhs, but all over the world, people being silent. Do you think this is not injustice with the Sikh people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it just shows, it's evidence of what a dictatorialship that we are dealing with here. Because first of all, to the actual law itself is to get the rich, lie in the pockets of the rich. So the power goes to the people with the power. And then they're not democratic at all. So as soon as the Sikh farmers have come out to protest, they're trying to then squash them. And I always feel when people aren't allowed to speak and then they're squashed in that way, the rulers know that these people speaking are actually a threat to them. It's like the UK government, people might constantly moan about the Conservatives, but they take it in their stride because that's what we do in a democratic society. We talk and we share issues. In India, I think that one of the problems right now is that it's not in our news, it's not shared in the media, and I'm somebody that's aware of it, and I'm having to rely on reports where I can to see what's going on. They're doing their best to even squash what's happening, and with that, a lot of the British people don't know, they're not aware of it. We don't know because it's not in our media, so it becomes a bigger issue. And I think this is why people can't talk about it. I've just recently had my 3rd Facebook account disabled, and 2nd page, and on it I had thousands of contacts, and I was able to access lots of different groups, lots of different information. In losing it all and having to start again, I've lost my sources of contact, I've lost the information that I was getting in. So it shows the power of social media for an ordinary person that's just online in their country, caught up in what the weather's doing, or what's the best curtains to buy, or favorite brands of coffee. They're not seeing it, they're not aware of it. And I think that's one of our jobs as activists, is to get that word out there. I think so.
Yeah, there's some question coming on screen. There's some question coming on screen. You can see on your screen. My viewers are asking questions. Answer step by step. Number one question is, if you haven't, then please ask her what is the British government is doing about breach of human rights in Kashmir. Number one question. Number two is coming on your screen. It says, why they do? And number three is saying, let me come here, uploading on my screen. If they can see human rights violence in other part of world, but not in Kashmir. You want me read it, or you understand?
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, I understand that. I think we've touched on some of it before. Essentially, it suits them, in my opinion, it suits the British government to keep Kashmiris, squashed, to keep the place squashed. They're doing that. They're selling, for their weapons of war. UK are one of the biggest sellers, I believe, to the weapons over there. So they are, making money on that. It suits them to keep the status quo, is what I believe. What is happening within the UK government, not so much the actual top ministers, but within some shadow ministers and prominent figures, people are standing up against the for human rights, against the atrocities. They've seen it. We've got a cross-party Friends of Kashmir groups from all different political spectrums, and they're working together, and they're raising the issue, and they're bringing it to the UK Parliament. And then what we need to do is take that voice to the United Nations. Sanctions is what should be happening as well. There should be sanctions on the BJP government lined up with their human rights abuses. I mean, our current campaign is about political prisoners. These are just people that are fighting, have spoken up for their democratic rights, for their freedom, for what they've been promised, and they've been locked up for it. And that is just not right, or just that needs to be. And our campaign that we're currently looking for is for sanctions on India until they are released. And we've also got our signature campaign for the release of them all, which is pushing off just now. So the UK government need to speak to India. They need to speak to the United Nations. They need to, you know, ideally they should be helping to mediate within talks, with the Kashmiris' voice being prominent. Be wonderful if they would stood up for Kashmirs. Be wonderful if they would stood up for Kashmirs.
Yeah, Claire. Let's talk. When you say democratic rights, so why England and all international community can't see, the human rights and also democratic right of the people of Kashmir? Why they can't see in
I don't know. I mean, ordinary people in the UK, in Great Britain, don't have access to this knowledge at the moment. It's not out there enough for them to question it. They're getting on with their lives, you know, and COVID just now is so big to them. They're dealing with that. And many just don't see beyond because it's not given to them. The United Kingdom government, you know, in Great Britain, again, it just suits, you know, it just suits that the countries look after themselves. That's what they're doing. They're not outward facing enough. And, you know, karma and everything, it will come back on them. And maybe COVID is one of the things that shows how, you know, thin a line there is between the economies of the East and of the West. So they do have to be, in my opinion, careful. There are lots of people that do see. There are lots of people that do see. And these are the ones that are standing up and protesting and getting their voice heard. And that's all we can hope. All we can do is hope that keep doing this, we will reach more people who will then put the pressure on the United Kingdom government to make sure they are standing up for human rights and doing it. As I say, I think it just suits the status quo. It suits Great Britain as a nation from the UK government's perspective, and I think that's what it's about. And the people have just got to make a noise because we elect the governments. So, you know, the governments are supposedly for the people, from the people. So it's up to us to raise that awareness and make sure that human rights are made a priority, and that people are aware that democracy is not being allowed, you know, internationally.
Yeah, Claire, let me ask another question, very important question. Because some people have, concern about the region of Kashmir. Do you think United Nations and UN Security Council, what is their role to stop the division of Kashmir?
It's the mechanics of the United Nations, isn't it? I mean, for me, the way that it's set up, what it was meant to do, I mean, I think it was shortly after World War II, what it was meant to do is function so that things like that don't happen again and international crises are met. So it should have the jurisdiction, the power to implement the UN resolutions and give Kashmiris their self-determination. But that is kind of then, you know, operated, organized by the 5 main power countries, and it needs to then come from them to get the United Nations moving. I don't understand the full mechanics, unfortunately, but what I do believe is the mechanics that we do need to kick into gear for Kashmir will be the same mechanics that will help Palestine, that will help Syria, that will help all the other places that are having mass problems. So it's within the mechanics of the United Nations, and it needs to get functioning more than a talk shop. They should actually start functioning on the resolutions and the articles, the charters, everything that they have, and that's also, you know, that's an aim. They should be functional.
Yeah, thank you very much, Claire. So many people ask a question. Probably you can see on your screen as well, and my screen is coming as well. I got a lot of people watching you on my mobile as well. So the people want to know, how come you start to support the people of Kashmir, and how it attract you to help the people of Kashmir?
Yeah, I mean, that was simply based on a human experience. I'd been out in holiday to Mumbai. I'd bought a couple of Kashmiri rugs from a Kashmiri salesman. I'd had a cup of tea when I was in the shop. I was shown, you know, obviously he was trying to sell me the whole shop. But it was, you know, it was a really nice experience. We kept in touch, and we would just ask, you know, how's your family? And then one day it simply came back that he didn't know. He couldn't contact his parents. He couldn't contact his sister. And that just reached something inside me, and a sense of injustice. My family background is my grandfather was an MP for 26 years, a Labour MP for Southall, and it was a very sort of mixed race, multicultural town. And I was very much part of his lifestyle there, and met people and functions. His front door was always open, and people would come in with all manner of problems. And so he was a very just person. And I guess within that upbringing anyway, there was something when I heard about this in Kashmir. And then, because what I did was I went online and I started, it was MPs like Liam Burns and Afzal Khan. I was in their website, and then I was reading more and more and more into it, realized how much I didn't know. And, you know, I've come on a very long journey in a very short time. I had different discussions with many people. And then one of those was from Kotley and Azad. And we had this idea then, I think it was his idea, to set up a Facebook group, because we wanted to, we were going to, you know, the idea was like with a voice on the inside and a voice on the outside, we could get news in and out. And we wanted to have, I wanted to have a whole world tea event, a solidarity event. And I wanted to go to Kashmir and hold this tea event with various different voices, and stream it out to different countries where we would have events on the streets. And so I made connections with lots of different people towards doing that. And it's just grown really from a sense of injustice on a human level. And I just can't believe that this is allowed to go on when I can, you know, breathe freely, walk through my streets with no fear, with no worry about anything. To think that other people are having to live under oppression, especially when they've been promised their own rights. Scotland had their own right for self-determination 2 or 3 years ago, given as a basic human right, and we didn't even have to worry about military on our doorstep and, you know, war, blinding by pellet guns, rapes, all the atrocities that are there, missing people, mass graves. So you can imagine, for me, it's just like that sense of give these people their right for self-determination and remove all this military and all this torture and chaos that's been going on for years. It doesn't seem, it's not right, it's not fair, and it's not just, and it should be solved. So right. It was just a heart-led journey.
Yeah, Claire.
So it was just a heart-led journey.
Yeah, Claire, we have a very big famous poet on my screen. You can see his name, Chaudhry Javed Iqbal Shokhi, a famous poet. He's from my local area. He said most welcome to you on my channel, on our area as well. He said most welcome. Okay. And everybody respect you. Everybody really appreciate your work for people of Kashmir. I think this is I believe you are a great human. Because you have a pen and you have understanding for the people of Kashmir all over the world as well, all minorities. So let me ask a question. As a woman, you can the newspaper, you can see on the website, you can on the videos in the YouTube, women being raped and disrespected by the Indian army. How do you feel all the women of the world should raise the voice for the women of Kashmir?
Oh, absolutely, totally. And I mean, I feel it. I mean, this is why I'm doing this work. I feel it. And then what happens is, because, I mean, how these women do it, I don't know. That their strength is amazing. What tends to happen, and I think what happens to a lot of human beings, is they stop thinking about it. They stop taking it in. So very often when you see these images, what many people do is turn it off, because they don't want to. They know if they take that thought in, that impacts them. And I think there's something within human nature that just is self-preservation as well. And I know there's often a feeling, I think people think they can't make a difference. I think they believe that their one voice can't do anything. I think they feel that they are constrained, whereas really what you have to do, in my opinion, is believe that you can make a difference. And that is, I know for me, it's very much an undercurrent. If my voice or my work or anything, you know, I want to make a difference, and I believe that I can make a difference. The stories are awful. I mean, the Kunan Pushpura, you know, that, for example, that injustice for 30 years, that is just awful that that's going on. And everybody just, those that can help solve it turn away from it or ignore it. So it is very painful. And I think I'd love to see people thinking, right, okay, what can I do? How can I help? I can make a difference. I'm going to make a difference. And it starts on your doorstep. It starts from the grassroots. It starts from telling your neighbors. It starts from telling your friends. It starts from sort of reaching out further and more people connecting to our councillors, to our MPs, to our governments. And if everybody's doing that in their country, then it grows. And when it comes for electing councillors, members of parliament, if you've got someone that's going to speak up for the women of Kuala you've got women going to speak up for the mass rapes, somebody that's going to speak up for Kashmir, then eventually, touch wood, these people will get, you know, voted into power. And again, the media is somewhere we need to go with this news, with these stories. They don't show it because they have these policies. Again, you know, there's lots of layers to it. But I think we all have to believe that we can make a difference, and just, you know, follow the heart, the thoughts, the gut, whatever it is that takes you there.
Yeah, Claire, you give me 40 minutes. Thank you very much. What is your last message for the democratic world and for the democratic leaders, for the people of Kashmir?
Oh, demilitarize the area, send in a peacekeeping army, and let Kashmiris have their self-determination. En route to that, Kashmiris, I would love to see trying to find the ways to work above the ideologies, work above the politics, and work for humanity. Respect that other people have different opinions based on their experiences, based on their beliefs, instead of keep arguing about why they shouldn't think that or shouldn't believe that. It's almost that giving that respect, you know, having the open, honest dialogue. But if everybody came together to fight for self-determination and united and listen to one another, that would be a big help as well. But governments in United Nations need to honour their promise.
Thank you very much, Claire. Hopefully you come again our channel and we give us some time. I know you're very busy lady. I'm really thankful to you. And hopefully you come again and give us some reviews and give message to the people of Kashmir and people of India, people of Pakistan, because we want to live with the peace, with the love, not with the war, not with the weapons. So thank you very much. Hopefully see you again. Have a nice evening. See you again. Thank you very much. जी दोस्तों, clear bell is gone. दोस्तों मैं अपनी ज़बान विच गल करसां इंशाअल्लाह, वापस सुनाई जां गिर गया। जी दोस्तों, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं दोस्तों दोस्तां नाल गुफ्तगू करसां इंशाअल्लाह थोड़ी देर से मज़ीद। क्लियर बेल ते जाई चुके और अपने जो गायब हो चुके। हुण मैं सारे नाल गुफ्तगू करसां अपनी 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 ज़बान विच। बहुत शुक्रिया सारे दोस्तां दा कमेंट कर रहे हो, सारे दोस्त जेह्ड़े जॉइन करी रहे हो, सारेयां दा बहुत शुक्रिया। जी दोस्तों, बहुत शुक्रिया जी, वेरी गुड रट्टा, जज़ाकल्लाह जी, बहुत शुक्रिया मोहम्मद यूनुस साहब। और